So who was here last year when was anybody here last time? So everybody's new, so no one's heard me before, right? So I can do the same thing I did. Well, I want this to be real casual, so if you guys got questions or comments all the way through, just tell me. And if you need to hurry me along, then do that. And when it's time to go, then tell me that too. So I don't want anybody to be bored. All through grade school, I just hated it. I didn't do well in school until I got in college, and really liked that. But it was really hard just to listen to somebody talk about stuff when you got a real strong imagination and you want to go there. So it was really hard. So I want you guys to be involved with what I'm doing. So what I want to do is sort of cover the influences that's influenced me to make these things and do what I do. As Kevin said, I have a landscape company, and it's really great if I can take art and then incorporate that in to the landscape. And if you're wondering, why do you make why do these things look the way they do? So I want to sort of explore that with you guys and sort of let y'all take a look inside my head if you want to do that. All right, so I'm basically going to go over hardship and play, dreams, and the Bible. So there's other influences, but those are kind of the biggest things that have influenced me. And I'm not going to do it in that order either. They're going to kind of go in and out. So hopefully y'all like that way of doing things. All right, so I guess we'll start with hardship. Has anybody here ever died and been resuscitated? Or do you know anybody that's died and been resuscitated? Nobody? Well, see, the first group, we had somebody. Oh, you have? So it's been you? Did you? So he died and he was resuscitated? Wow. So.
And I actually do that on a daily basis.
Oh, so you're a nurse?
I'm an X-ray tech in the cardiac cath lab.
So you bring people back and when they go? Wow. So when that happened to your dad, was he changed afterwards, or you talk? So how was he changed?
He made a lot of life changes, but he kind of respects different aspects of certain things more now, because he was only 48.
Okay. And he has really good memory of everything that happened? Okay. Well, that was something that happened to me when I was 2 years old. And I had severe asthma. I don't know if my parents knew it when I was born. I need to ask them that. How long did they know? But I had a severe asthma attack when I was 2 and was taken to the hospital. And on the way, before I got there, my mom, she was a nurse. She was pregnant with my brother. While she was in the car, she just prayed and said, God, please don't let him die, please don't. And she was just yelling that, actually, just praying it. And anyway, she knew I had died because I quit breathing, no heartbeat, and I'd turned blue. So my dad has a job where he worked with physicians, and there was as he was going to the hospital carrying me, there was a physician that was coming out, so he just handed him to him, and they rushed me in. My dad just couldn't go in. He thought it was pretty much over. So my mother, she went in with me, and she said they just turned me over and they got a big hypodermic needle and put it in there, and I came back. And when she saw that I was back, she just passed out right there because just being pregnant and just all the stress and the emotion. So here I am now surviving that. One thing that was really a big deal in my childhood was absolute play. You guys play really hard when you were little? Did you play? Do you play hard now? Yeah. Yeah. So I, having just a really strong imagination, and then the asthma was still there, and they just didn't have good medicine, so there was a lot of time I was at home. I couldn't go to school, so what I had in my house was my very own laboratory. And I was a scientist. And not only was I a scientist, I was a mad scientist. And I always had a body that I was building or that I was working on, and just fascinated with that. Fascinated with how to take something and make it alive. My brother was my assistant. My younger brother was my assistant, and we would just collect dead animals that we found. I mean, birds, whatever we could find, and we'd take it to my laboratory, and we would hook it up to. We actually got wires out of the fan, and we thought, we'd put just on the Frankenstein movies, they made him alive. Yeah, so we were always doing that, and just fascinated with the wings of the birds, just having that animal there. And one day, our German Shepherd had a little baby rabbit in his mouth, and of course I assumed it was dead, and I got it out of the dog's mouth and gave it to my brother and said, "Take this to the laboratory and hook him up." We got usually the things that we had been dead for a while. So we had something fresh, and it wasn't stiff, it was wiggled. So he took it up, and then I was putting the dog away, and then my brother comes to the window and says, "Joe, it worked. He's alive." And I know what happened, now looking back, that he was just, rabbits go into some stage of fright and they seem like they're dead. But we really believed we had brought that rabbit alive, and even made a little bed with covers and a pillow, put it in there. Well, does anyone know what happens to little wild animals when you try to keep them? Yeah, so it's about 3 days. So we had it for about 3 days, and of course he died. But we just thought we could bring it back. I mean, we just worked hard. We brought it back once. We can do it again. And so after 3 days of that, after it died, we knew it just wasn't going anywhere. So we decided to bury it, and we had a funeral, and we buried it. And my dad would entertain physicians as part of his job. They'd come over, and my mother would feed them a nice meal. And I knew there's a doctor. I mean, I'm a scientist. This is a scientist. He would be interested in my work. And maybe, this rabbit, he could, maybe he could help me get the. So I dug that rabbit. It was 3 weeks. That rabbit had been buried 3 weeks. And I dug it up, and we were eating outside, and my mother looks over, and I have got the rabbit right. I've come up and I've got it right at him. While he's eating, he looks over, and they see that rabbit. So I got in a lot of trouble for that. So
did they ever ship you off to a military?
my dad did. Yeah, he was. Yeah, my dad was a tough guy. Military school, the Citadel. He was a war hero, and he always thought that I would do, follow him that way and go. But it happened as it did, so I didn't go there.
You didn't end up on Criminal Minds.
Well, there's no criminal. Well, okay. Here's the next thing. So I'm always making a body, and I was just fascinated with the human body, and that part about what makes a human body alive, and what makes things alive. So I don't know if this was my suggestion. I think it was my friend's, but it could have been my suggestion. But someone got the idea to take Joe's body that he's made here, and there was a neighbor lady, and she had a routine when she pulled out of her driveway, and it's like, let's put the body under the tire and yell and scream like he'd run over this whole. So, and I saw this. I didn't say, no, you can't do that to my creation. I didn't. So, I don't remember actually being the instigator, but anyway, I was a part of it because I was watching. Well, it was just perfect because she stopped when that tire was right over that body, and I mean, the way it was crumpled up, and it looked so like it happened, and you said you'd run over, oh, you've hit this person, and she gets out of the car and she sees it, and just has a freak out, and I do feel bad about that. She really thought she had done that, but we all run, and so I don't even know what happened. I don't know what happened to the body or what happened there. She figured it out, and she never went after us. So, but in my art, I still have that fascination with the human body, and fascination with life, and what does life come from? And thinking about the garden, actually the word garden, the meaning of the garden actually comes from the Garden of Eden. That's all tied in what that word means. So in everybody's mind, the Garden of Eden is the ultimate garden. When you think of it, you think of that. And when you break down, what the Garden of Eden is, I mean, what actually is a garden? Does anybody have any definitions of a garden in their mind, with what you would think of when you think of a garden?
Place where you get plant trees.
Tree.
Plants, trees, birds, insects.
Yeah.
Artwork.
So let me kind of separate it. So there's nature, right? There's nature, which is all out there, right? And then we separate that and we have garden. So, I mean, when we read about the Garden of Eden, it was like God created all of nature, and then out of all that nature, He creates the garden, right? So in a way, what He's done, when you look at nature in all of its beauty, but it's so complex. I mean, we know there's something so mysterious and so complex about seeing nature. I mean, none of us can not be in nature and just be awed by it. We don't want to change it. I mean, you would never think, what if we move that river here or that mountain there? We don't want to do that. We want to leave it just the way it is. But then all that meaning and all that mystery that's in nature, what if the mind of God, He put that in a way that simplified it, put that in a way that everything has meaning, everything has a design that will have meaning. So here's nature, here's this garden, a separate place from nature, and then we read about trees that bring healing. We read about things that have all these depths of meaning, and then even in that garden, there's a center, right? In the center of the garden, there was 2 trees, right? So even in that garden, there's we keep getting these levels of meaning. So I'm sure you guys, there's a lot of artistic abilities in y'all. What do you do with that number 2 when you have 2 things? How do you design with 2? Any of y'all have any ideas? When you see two things, what does that do for you? It's hard to design with 2, right? So when I'm working with 2, it's usually like when I have a path and I want to put something on each side of the path, and I want you to get led, to another place, so you use 2. But you don't really put 2 things there. It just doesn't feel right. We want that third space, right? So what completes that two in that garden? You got the two trees. What would complete that?
Focal point.
Yeah? What about us? What if we stand before those two trees? We're the third part of that, you know? Those two trees are there for us, not for anything else, you know. We complete, though those trees have no meaning without a person, without a personality. And in a way, in the landscapes I design, I want to bring the personality of humanity, bring that humanity into the design, just like in that Garden of Eden. And then bring in the meaning that art can do. It has all these dual meanings. All right, so now let's go to dreams. Let's go ahead and go to that. Do you guys, who likes to dream in here? You like to dream?
Yes.
Dream? So who doesn't like to dream? Who?
Literally dream.
Yeah, yeah, dream. We have dreams at night. Yeah, do y'all have vivid dreams at night? Yeah, I know Linda. You do? And do you enjoy those? Do you like those?
Depends on what they are.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes they're scary. So in my life, I just absolutely love my dreams, and I don't even write them down because I remember them and I think about them. But looking back, I have like these art dreams that are like real important. There are just a few of those, maybe 3 or 4 or 5. And then even like a major one. I have one that's like the major one. And I'm going to talk to you about that one, how that's affected me. But I guess I was probably about 8 years old, and I dreamed that about 30 feet away from me there was Jesus. And all the Jesuses I've seen and growing up were very white-looking people. I saw the pictures of Jesus were white. Well, this Jesus had dark skin, had brown eyes, it had black hair. It was very curly, black hair. And the clothes were extremely white. And that's what I was impressed with, how white the clothes were and how dark his hair was. And he was about 30 feet away. And I'm just paralyzed like this. I can't move anyway. I'm forced to look like that. And but I could tell from a distance he didn't look like he had a happy face. It looked like it was not happy. So then I was glad that he was 30 feet away. And then just in an instant, 15 feet, he's moved like half that distance. And I can tell right then, he looked like he wanted to beat me up. That's the look on his, oh yeah. And he looked really angry and really fierce. And so I'm here, and then the next moment, we're eye to eye. His eyes are right in my eyes. And I can still see the eyes, see the pupils, see the really black pupils and see the brown, see his skin around there, and he's looking. You know how in dreams you're sort of omnipresent, you know what's going on in your dream, you know everything's going on. And then what happened next, and I knew he took his hand and he stuck it into my side, like in my ribs, and it hurt. And I woke up with a really sharp pain in my side, and then it just slowly subsided. The pain did. And I'm thinking, what in the world, what? I didn't know what to think of that. But every year, up to that time, I was rushed to the hospital with asthma attack. And after that dream, I was never taken to the hospital again. I still had asthma, and it was still a struggle. But one thing that really helped that was I started just compelled to run and just continue that. And now I just got to exercise every day. I just push myself every day and have very little. There's only one thing that will make me wheeze, and it's straw. And whenever we have to seed, sometimes we'll seed lawns, we'll put straw down, and I'll take that straw and I'll do like that just to get a little wheeze. But I meant to tell this, there's an interesting thing about that. Do you guys ever think about your very first memory? You ever done that? It's really interesting to do. And with your spare time or before you go to bed, just try to go back to your very first memory till you can't go anymore. And I really think there's significance. But I've always had this, my first memory was, I was 2 years old, and I was standing on the straw, and I could see my feet, and I had baby shoes on. Did y'all remember those baby shoes? You don't see baby shoes anymore. They don't do it, but somehow they thought that makes your feet grow right. But looking at that, but then feeling really uneasy that the ground was uneasy and standing there. Well, about a year ago, but I always thought about that being my first dream, and what in the world does that have to do with anything? So I was talking to my parents. My mom was having some problem in the hospital, and my dad was there. And I told them that dream. I've never told them the dream about seeing Jesus and Him coming up. And they talked about, they filled in more about the time we went to the hospital. And the day I was sick was, they had just seeded the yard, and because they were going to sell the house. He was a salesman and traveled a lot, and we were going to move, and they were going to sell the house, and he had just seeded the yard, and I was out there on it. I was out there on that yard. And that night is when I had the asthma attack, and I was just breathing so. Have y'all ever experienced anyone with asthma? You know how it goes? Yeah, I mean, your breathing is automatic response, so you got to have so much oxygen in your blood to survive, so if you're not getting it, I mean, it's like your ribs are exposed, you're breathing with everything you have. And you're making all these crazy noises because your lungs have lots of mucus in them, and it's making all these noises. And my brother couldn't sleep because we shared the room, and he couldn't sleep because I was making so much noise. And he goes into their room, and my dad goes to check me out. But it hit me just last year. My very first memory would have been my very last. That would have been my last memory. And I did not know that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So when I was about 13 years old, I got a hold of the Bible, and I just couldn't quit reading it. So probably every day since I was 13, I've never stopped reading it. And you can see that evident in things I do. You can see the biblical references. And also as we're going, I want to leave y'all time to really look at things, but if you have questions about different things you're seeing or things I'm saying, then just go ahead and talk about it. But one thing I'd like to talk about is this sculpture right here. What do you see? What do you guys see in that sculpture?
Somebody kneeling down and an angel protecting them. It's angels wings, isn't it, behind it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's a face in the front of it.
It's kind of hard to see for you guys back there. Yeah.
I would guess it was Jesus in Gethsemane praying. That must be this.
Okay. You see that over here? Yeah.
Well, the bronze.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that? Yeah. Well, what I've designed that after, have y'all ever read about the Ark of Covenant? In the Bible, y'all read about that? So this isn't, it's bigger than this, but y'all know about ratios? You know what ratios are? In drawing a face, you know, you've got an eye between each eye, and you got the ratio is the eyes are right in the middle of the head. So you've got all these ratios that make up whatever you're doing. So I did this because it's very, very specific in the Bible how the measurements they are. So I just took those ratios and did the ratios. And what's really interesting about this is, well, I found out, I didn't know it till I did it, but have y'all heard of the golden ratio? Y'all heard of that? Does anybody want to talk about that? What that means? Golden ratio?
I'd love for you to talk about it. I looked it up after you mentioned it.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, there's this ratio that it's just the most mysterious thing, but everything follows this ratio. When I say everything, I mean everything. For instance, if you want to see what it looks like, you know what a nautilus shell is? You know, it's a snail shell. Have you seen one and they're cut? They're cut down the middle like that, and you can see a little spiral inside. So it starts with a little, and then you see it slowly get bigger and bigger like that. Well, if you were to do a ratio between those as it gets larger, that ratio is the golden ratio, okay? All right, that same ratio is in the spiral galaxy. You know, y'all seen this picture of a spiral galaxy in space? It's got that ratio. If you look down a pine cone, you get a pine cone and you look down, you'll see a spiral of those things in there, or corn. It does the same ratio. All right? I know everybody's flushed the commode, right? It's the same spiral. It's the same ratio when you flush the commode. If you get cancer and the way the cancer grows, it grows the same rate as that. It's the golden ratio. Money saved in the bank grows at the same ratio. People become billionaires by just starting, and then bigger and bigger and bigger. Everything follows this ratio. It's crazy. Populations all follow the same. And no one can explain it. It's unexplainable why things do follow that, but there it is. Well, this would have been one of the first objects that would have the golden ratio. It would be one of the first objects made, and it was directed by God, by human hands to make. And at that time, there was nothing created by human hands more powerful than the Ark of Covenant. And what I've done with this is I've made it in nuclear meltdown. The whole thing is melting down. It's breaking apart. It's all going away. And the reason is, you know, I've put Jesus here, and it's like, you know, when he was crucified, the temple was torn in two, and then that separated this from everything else was ripped and torn. So the idea is that when he came, you know, everything else was melted down. And that's what's going on there, and that comes from my interest in the Bible. I had this in a show one time. It was outside, and we noticed when I was taking it, well, I had noticed some like pine needles coming out right here, little pine needles sticking out. And then when we took it all apart, I noticed that there was a bird nest in there, and there were little eggs. So in the whole time that we had this, a bird built a nest and hatched its eggs and went on. All from the time we had the show. I thought that was really cool. And this here is a way to sort of combine the plant material with the art, and what I've got growing in here is a grapevine. And, this symbolizes an outstretched Jesus. And, and there's Bible verses that I'm the vine, you're the branches. And what's cool about this is it changes. It's going to have leaves on it in the summer, and then the leaves fall off, and then it's sort of interactive. You can go and just take leaves or sort of help it along how you want it. But it's just an interesting way to have a little space that you interact. You're a part of it. You see it change. You see it happen like that. And then in these two, hollowed out boulders with plant material, and then applying there's the body parts, the body I'm building. And then that one there, and I had another dream, and I'll sort of talk about that one over there. So now I'm going to go to another hardship.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
About the angels, can you tell us about the angels and what they're doing?
Sure. Well, let me, I'll go ahead and tell one thing about the process that's kind of interesting. A lot of us are like afraid of accidents. We don't want, a lot about art is like lessons in control, like when to control something and when to let it go. And I think we have problems with control anyway. Just being human, we want to just control everything. And art really teaches you how to harness that control. There's times to control and there's times to let go. Well, I was really struggling with this, and I just didn't get the angels quite right. And I had this one I was good with, but this one I wasn't. And I left the room, I had him on there like I thought I wanted it, and left the room, and then I came back to work and it was gone. It wasn't on there. I said, did he fly off? Or did my kids come in here and take? Because they're not supposed to come in there because there's a lot they could get into and it could be bad. But it wasn't there. And then I looked around, and have you ever seen a bird hit a window? And like birds are magnificent when they're flying, their wings, and then if you've seen one after it hit and it's dead, it's just all rolled up. It doesn't look anything like. Well, there was my angel down, and he looked like that. He was all, all rolled up. He was on the ground. What it had done had fallen off, and it hit and cut. And then when I put it back up, it was just right. It was just like I wanted it, just perfect. So that's how I did a little bit of changing, but it made it just like I wanted. And what I wanted to do was, any encounter with angels, if you read the Bible, are with fear and loathing. Nobody wanted to see an angel. They were scared. They weren't sure what it was, good or bad. It was so powerful. And we've kind of made angels almost, we just made them so sweet and so loving and all. But so these angels were very powerful, and they were placed over the ark, and I wanted to show that even they break down in the presence of something greater, Something greater comes and everything breaks down, everything falls apart. And I think that's a part of us that, like, what are we willing to give up? What are we willing to let break down for something greater, to push through? And that's the reason I mentioned the hardships is I'm looking at these hardships, and they're the things that's like pushed me into a better place in a lot of ways. I guess they could push us in a worse place, but I think they have the capacity to push us in a better place. So that's why the angels look like they look. It's interesting that where God was, he wasn't inside this. He was like right here. And the high priest had to throw blood, come in only once a year, and he had to throw blood on this, which is really interesting. They would throw that blood on there just once a year. So, I was just showing something better. All right, so is any more questions about that? Or And it's just anything you see. If you want to ask about it, just ask me, and we'll go to it.
Joe, is that too heavy to lift and turn around so we can see the back of it?
Yeah, you want me to do that?
Can we get to it?
Well, I'll do that. Let me do that at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. And everybody that wants to see it, I'll turn it around. That's what's cool about sculpture, is that you can, you got three-dimensional. You can do. I like drawing and I like painting and all that, but I feel like all of my brain's working when I'm doing sculpture, because it's just something all over. And then doing it in an outside space, creating an outside space that's not confined by walls in a sense, and the light always changing so it looks different at different times of the day, and then the weather, it has ice on it or the leaves change. So just that whole changing nature of having art outside is just so interesting to me to do that. So let me talk about another hardship. As I'm talking about these things, does it make the things I make sense when you look at them? Do you see, oh, well, he's thinking about that? So when I was 18 years old, I just started art school, and I was at my girlfriend's house, who is my wife now, and we were remodeling their house, and my job was I was pulling the quarter round off the house there, and I got on a stool that only had 3 legs, and I had a crowbar, and I was pulling that stuff off, and sure enough, as I pulled it loose, then I was going down, and I knew I was going to fall, so I decided, well, I'm going to catch myself. And then as I started to catch myself, there was a window, sort of like this, and my arm went into the window, into the glass, and then pulled it out. And then I'm going to show you. You see that scar right here? If I shaved my arm, you could see it back. There's a scar that goes all the way across, 3/4 around my arm, and it was 3 inches deep. So my arm was basically 3/4 cut off. And all the muscles here went into a little ball down here, and then these went into a little ball right there. And I did the very worst thing that anyone could do. You know what I did? I started running. Because that's what I do. That's what I learned to deal with the asthma. I mean, running was the answer for everything, right? You run. I don't know what made me do it, so I just started running, and my wife and her dad heard all this going on, and they heard the fall and the crash, and so they came in. They were doing something outside, and they came in, but as they came in, they saw all this blood, up the steps, and then so they're trying to follow this blood trail, and I think I went 3 laps around the house, and then I came to my senses and thought, man, I need to go to the hospital. So I started walking, and I walked into them and said, we need to go to the hospital. So another thing that happened, I really kind of had my experience with the first fountain, because, when you get your heart beating, every time my heart beat, that blood came out. And I don't know if y'all have ever smelled blood. Have you ever smelled blood? A lot of it. What's it? It smells like iron. It smells iron. Yeah. It smells like iron, especially when it's So, but through all this, I never passed out. I never went into shock. I mean, it was probably close, but this is what was so crazy about this experience was, being in art school, and that was my right arm, and that was it's all right. What I do, I get there, and as I get there, the nurse just pulls out a chunk of glass about that big. I didn't even know that was in there. She pulls that out, and this huge sense of peace came over. I felt so good. I don't know why. I felt so good. You get adrenaline, you get all those endorphins coming over you. But I think it was even beyond that, because I just, I'd always pushed I still pushed myself pretty hard, but really pushed myself then, and it just felt really good. I guess in a way turning everything over. And so I'm in the hospital, and the doctor who happened to be on, it was his call to be there at the emergency room, he was a really, really good hand surgeon. And he came in and looked at it, and he was trying to prepare me for something really bad. He found out I was in school to be an artist, and he was just trying to prepare me that we may not be able to keep this arm. And I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to be fine. And he said, what, how will you be fine? You got some lucky whatever. He was pushing me, and I never answered him. I just said, I just feel like everything is going to be great. And just felt really happy. And it was just odd. I feel so happy. Well, when I came to, the surgery was all day long. It was like an 8-hour surgery. He just carefully put everything back, putting the muscles back, sewing arteries back, whatever he had to do. And when I came to, he was over to the side, and he was waiting for me to wake up. He didn't want to wake me up. And he just said, man, I got to tell you this. When I got into your arm, laying against the bone was the main artery and the main nerve. He said, if either one of those were severed, you'd have lost your arm. He said, I can't understand how those weren't cut. He couldn't, it was just something he couldn't understand. And I know this is even crazier sounding, but as I was working on a painting of, and I've always liked hands and always liked the body, so I was doing this painting of an arm and a hand, and it was in the sun, and the sky was blue, and the sun was kind of coming out of the hand, and that's what I was working on. And he had me all, after the surgery, it was all cast and everything, but I was able to, I finished that painting. I had time from work, and I finished that painting, and on the first doctor visit after the surgery, I brought him that painting. It was still wet with oil paint, and gave him that painting. When he touched it, he got the paint all over his hands, and he just kind of put it over to the side. But it just felt so good. He knew there was something about that whole thing, and for me to give him that picture. And I need to look him up. I haven't really thought about him in a while, and just wonder if he's alive, and just see how he's doing. So I'd like to continue that story. But another thing I saw when I was at St. Vincent's, and in the hospital rooms, they've got the crucifixes. In every hospital room, you've got Jesus on the cross. So I looked at that and thought, that image of that body and the blood that came out. So you can see, like with this figure here, you can see, here, see the arm right there. There's a cut on that, and then the cuts and the places. And then I've done, I really like doing this particular image, and I've got some where I have water that comes, where water comes out of the head and out of the hands. And actually I was in a show where it was some kind of icon show. I was asked to be in the show, Art as Icon. And there was my sculpture there, and then there was another sculpture beside it, and they used seeds. I had seeds as a part of it. And some of those seeds had fallen down onto the ground, and then the sculpture I had water, and some of the water had dripped. But in the process of that show, those seeds, it sprouted those seeds up underneath it. So that was really kind of cool to have all that. And the guy that really liked it, that happened, that all on its own, that here's art that doesn't really have life in itself. It's just an object, it's just a thing, and yet you have something that really has life happen around it. And I'll pass this sculpture around. This is kind of doing the same motif, where what this is a communion cup. And what I've done is made it out of Jesus' body, See, there's the front of his body, and there's his back, and then it's just like ripped open and pulled apart. And it's just combining those images. And here I'll pass this around so y'all can get a feel of bronze and look at that one. Another thing, let's go, while she's looking at that, let's go back to a dream. Y'all want to hear another dream? Want to hear that? Well,
Just let you know, 1 hour. So,
oh, we're at 1 hour now?
yeah.
Okay. Do y'all want to ask questions and look at things, or do you want me to keep, what would y'all like to do?
Just more about your sculptures.
Okay.
Why did you want that tree particularly?
Well, I really like the red on it. It's what happens with that tree is in the wintertime, all the leaves go off, and as the leaves go off, the trunk and everything gets red. And then when spring comes, all the red disappears, and then green leaves come on it. So I just really like it that it does that. It's a real unusual tree.
But it's not a coral bark, it's something else.
It is.
Oh,
Yeah. I think that's just a general name, and then there's different type coral barks. And she used that big Japanese word.
She did. Sangu cuckoo.
See, she said it. Did you get it?
Nope, sangu cuckoo. Cuckoo.
Yeah, you can't. It's indestructible. You couldn't hurt it.
Trust me.
Yeah, that's what's cool about the bronze. It really is like the best metal. I mean, it's been done for 5,000 years, bronze casting.
I would find a way.
And they pull it out of oceans. And it actually gets better with, you get the color. Those colors aren't, it's not paint that's on there. It's actually acid that interacts with the metal, and then it oxidizes with the air. And then as it gets air, it actually color intensifies, and you can do things to arrest it or even bring the color out. So that's what's interesting about the bronze and copper.
Is that Moses on that big pot right
No, I call this the history bowl. That was one thing I really liked in school was history. And on this, and I'll even pick this one up and turn it so you can see it. Because what's so cool about the bowls is that you can tell a story. And what I did with this is I really like the Greek art. I think they probably did the best art ever of any civilization. But then, as great as we get, we just mess it up and crumble. So, what's happening here, everything is in deterioration. Like this whole bowl looks like it's thousands of years old. I want it to look like it's that old, and it's in deterioration. So, Amy, get it? So see, there's that figure there, and then. Well, it's kind of a composite of all. They use that face a lot. Actually, I looked like that not too long ago, just a couple of weeks. And then here's like an angel, and see he's in deterioration too. See his face is all. It once was great, but it's still in deterioration. It's in a state of, and I like that concept of once great, but then not. It's an interesting thing. And then here's this is a good exercise. See, there's a Greek soldier, seeing his arms sloughed off. Can you see him there? Right there. And then finally, all that's left, you can just barely see that figure. See, you can just barely see it. That's all that's left. So that's the story there. This one, This is a story of, here's a little child seeing he's dreaming. He's asleep, he's dreaming. And what he's dreaming about is this horse. And I tried to make it look like it's in motion. See the horse in motion as it goes? I wish I could make these turn. But, so that's what's going on there. If anybody wants to hold this one. Yeah.
What was the
Well,
Inspiration.
yeah, well, going back to the Garden of Eden, what is in the center of that garden? If not trees, 2 trees. It's just basically the cross is even referred to as a tree in some things. It's hung on a tree. Cursed is the part's made of wood. It's hung on a tree. That's why I like the Bible so much. It takes everyday images, everyday things, and then it gives you all this meaning, all these levels of meaning behind simple things as trees. I mean, trees are a huge symbol all in the Bible and so many meanings in the Bible. And I was always impressed that our lungs, if you ever looked at, because as having the asthma, I would study out the lungs. I was going to in my laboratory, find a cure for asthma. But it looks like a tree, it does. It looks, our veins and arteries and nerves and all look so much like trees and roots, and lightning looks like trees. So that's it. When I see a tree, I think about that pattern that's going on and think about how that's repeated in so many other things, has so many other meanings. So I just want to make that connection, that's what's going on in my mind. So if I put that there, then maybe you can just contemplate those connections.
Did you make all of the fountains?
No, this comes from this. I just asked them to bring this. This is one that they have here in the storeroom, and I asked them to bring that in.
But the heads are yours.
Right, and then I just made it cooler, right? I mean, honestly, there's a million of those, but that's the only one like that right now in this world, right? And that's another thing you can do with art. You can make something truly unique. There's very, very few times you get something truly unique.
Do you have any suggestions on how we can incorporate art into our little vegetable gardens or butterfly gardens? Because I don't know how to mold bronze or anything like that.
Well, here's what I think the reason we even want to do a garden or whatever, the reason we ever really want to do anything is that we're trying to bring something inside of us out is really what we're trying to do. And in a way, we all have a garden inside of us, and we're just trying to give it a physical representation. So me mentioning the dreams, me mentioning influences, I think what's real interesting about when you guys do any kind of creative pursuit, a garden or whatever, not so much look at what anyone else is doing, but what is inside of you, and then how can you make that outside of you. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Taking what's inside of you and outside. And that was another dream I had too, so I know we're running out of time. I've got a bunch of dreams and all to hook up to, but that can be next year.
Yeah. Could you say something about the horse and the face over here? Because that's kind of interesting that you put those two things together.
Yeah, that's part of one thing I did when I don't know where this came from, but when I was little, I put personalities with the numbers 1 through 7, and everyone, and it stopped at 7, but every one of those numbers had a personality. So something I do is I'll associate some sort of unrelated things with something else, and what I've done was just connect, the horse with the person, and in a way that's like a dream where, I have a horse image in dreams. It's there as a symbol, so it's just connecting those two together, just bringing those two together. In the same way of bringing the tree and the wire figure there together.
And the birdhouse, you just added the face.
Yeah, I just thought I'd show how you can take something, even though that's a really cool birdhouse, But you can take something and then even make it more interesting by having a face there, having a personality there. Another thing I like to do is just find, that's an example of that, just find objects like, you know, I like this, I like the shape of this, but then I just added, with a Sharpie, added a face. See the face on it? So just added that, just to make that. So I just took something real simple and then just made it have a personality, you know, have an interest. And that's what the art can do to just mundane things, or just if you would have just seen and heard that before we put the faces on, you know, just made, I think Kevin needs to buy those faces to go with that and start a line. You know, and there's another object that I found, and I'll just do a drawing. I'll do a drawing of Adam on there and then Eve's on the other side. So there's Adam. No, this is just it's just a ceramic. And then this is just, you know, like I do sculpture and then pour on the sculpture. It's fun just to pour the paint, and so it's just poured over the figure.
But we still haven't seen Eve.
Oh, Eve, I made her a little more modest. See, just see the back. See her back. Yeah, being respectful.
Hear a story about a reclining man.
Well, I've got to do a dream about that one. You want me to do that one?
Yeah.
You got time for a dream? Okay. So, and what's interesting about that one is like where we're here now. But I had this dream where I was in a group of people and I was talking to a group of people, just like we are. And I was going to do a strength demonstration. This is a dream. I was going to do a strength demonstration, so I put my hand on the table and I was going to hold my body out with my hand just on the table. And I did, and it felt so good. And then for some reason, I went straight up to the ceiling just like that. And when I did, everybody in the room cleared. It was like, we're out of here, you know. And
Even in your dreams.
yeah, they said, what? And how'd that happen? But it felt so good. I was so content to be up there like that. So there he is. And then that's the example of, you know, there's a natural boulder hollowed out, filled with soil, with plant material, and then there's the figure. And then you can see, you know, from my mad scientist past, you know, pulling from my mad scientist there. And I love that I've got life-size ones. And I was going to try to do it here. It's the hardest sculpture I ever made was a wire. I've got several of those, and it's life-size. And I was going to put it over you guys. Yeah. So I just didn't.
Clear the room again.
Yeah, I thought that would be too, you know, I know you're going to hear some strange things. That could be too much. So I've toned it down. Toned it down for you guys.
Did the levitation have any particular symbolic meaning for you?
Well, I just haven't, it just felt good. You know, it was just all about feeling free. And, you know, and there's something about play that's about freedom, right? Because when we're playing, it's not play if you have to do it, right? It's not play if you can't quit. Like you can't quit. I mean, you're not playing. You know, there's something about the freedom of being able to quit when you want. You make your own rules, and you're enjoying this. And there may be pain involved. There may be whatever, but still you're playing. So I guess that part, just that feeling of freedom, and I've got to explore that. I haven't really had it because that was pretty recent. So I've just got to explore that feeling of that freedom.
Could you tell us about the sculpture right behind you? Is that a foot?
That's a foot. Yeah, see, foot. And you know, this is all natural. Like this is a teak bowl, and then these are real rocks, and then but there's no maintenance involved. There's no soil. So, and then that's just a foot with copper wire.
So from the weather, then it's turned green from the rain?
Well, I had to help it along. Yeah. And there's ways to help it along. There's the very, very best way to get the very best color is pregnant horse mare urine gives the best blue. No, my foundry guy says that is the very best thing to use. But it's just the acid reacts to the copper, causes those colors. Memphis, Luger Foundry in Memphis and Germantown. Yeah, he's done just about all the big sculptures here in Little Rock. The eagle, Capitol, the soldier, the Central High people. He did all those.
You did this painting?
Yeah, those. See, I like painting. I like sculpture, so I've combined them both. So that sculpture kind of comes out. So I've been experimenting with that, and I like to take, like that person is actually my landscape foreman, but then I put him in a pose like Jesus. So it's kind of fun for me to take everyday people and then make them be somebody that it's not everyday. So I just like that whole idea of doing that. I'd like to do a whole series of taking everyday people and making them be what everybody
How did you get it 3D?
well, that's my secret. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
My next question is, when do you sleep? 7 children, artists?
You know, they love it when I do art. They really do. But I have to keep them out of my little room. Well, I do have I take that back. I do have a little place set up where they can come in there and do it. But there's just so many things they can get into that wouldn't be good for them. And especially now we have a 3-year-old that's very, very active.
Do you have
Like
a
it's-
mad scientist?
What's that?
Do you have a mad scientist?
Oh, in our children? Well, they're all very, actually, I do have, my 17-year-old wants to be a physician, and we have a client that he does all the autopsies, for when people are, and he granted my wish. I've always wanted to take a sketch pad and actually draw a real body. And he called he's from New York, and I told him I always wanted to do that, and he called and said, and he's an Italian, and he said, Joe, I got 4 bodies. You need to come. He has his own separate thing from the state. You need to come out, and so I was able to come out and actually draw as he went through the whole body. So the reason I'm saying that is my son he's going to get to do that with my son. So he's going to get to go through which is so interesting. It was just crazy to do that. So I may have to go over there with him and do that again. I didn't think I could do it. I really didn't think I could take, there's one thing seeing it, but then the sounds, and then there's also smells. And I hate cigarette smoke, and someone that was working there lit up a cigarette, and I was like breathing it in, like, oh, I need that smell. I need that, as opposed to, I'm not sure what that smell. So yeah, he's science. He got the part of my wife that has the strong math and logic. See, I just don't have any logic. It's all. And I don't know if it was the oxygen cut off, if it is, I'll take it. That's good. So some of my children got the creativity and the logic. So he's one of them.